Without getting too depressing right off the bat, if there's one thing that all of us humans have in common, it's that we're all going to die. Hopefully though, when we do go, it'll be nice and peacefully at a grand old age and surrounded by our loved ones. Sadly, not all of our favourite video game characters get to pass on painlessly. In fact, most folks who do die in video games will get a fairly rough end, though as this list is about to prove, some deaths are far worse than others. With that in mind, we've trawled the history books to find the most gnarly deaths in all of video gaming, and fair warning, we will be talking about death and dismemberment throughout this video, so if it's not your cup of tea, it's probably best to click away now. For everyone else, I hope you're not having your dinner, because things are about to get nasty. Oh, and spoiler warnings for all the entries you see on your screen, alright? I'm Ben from Triple Jump, and here are the 10 most brutal deaths in video game history. Number 10. Leon S. Kennedy, Resident Evil 4. Although Leon's deaths in Resident Evil 4 aren't canon, they are, all of them, quite painful looking, though of all of the ways to die in the game, falling at the hands of Dr. Salvador, aka the Chainsaw Man, has got to be the worst, which is saying something considering this is a game where an axe to the head or a swift pitchforking aren't off the cards. Dr. Salvador is one of the ganado that Leon first encounters at the beginning of the game when he reaches the village, and suffice it to say, this guy isn't just looking to chop up a few logs or make a sweet sculpture. Oh, that's nice. If Leon isn't able to put enough bullets in Dr. Salvador before the power tool wielding nutcase gets too close, and oh boy or girl or other can this fella soak up bullets, then the floppy-haired protagonist gets the lumberjack experience only from the point of view of a tree. Whether he's caught head-on or from behind, the outcome is the same. Dr. Salvador will plunge his chainsaw through Leon's torso, then carve him in twain like a Christmas turkey. A badly carved Christmas turkey, but still. Number 9. Joel, The Last of Us Part 2. They reckon that golf is a good walk ruined, and that's probably especially true if you're out for a few holes with Abby from The Last of Us Part 2. Whilst out on patrol 5 years after the events of The Last of Us, Joel and his brother Tommy find a young woman desperately in need of assistance. Being the good-ish Samaritans that they are, they save her from the zombie horde and she takes them back to her people, and if you stop playing the game here, then nothing bad happens and everyone lives happily ever after. What? You spent $70 on this title and you want to see it to the end? Alright, well, don't say I didn't warn you. Indeed, if you don't take my advice, then you get to watch as Abby, the daughter of the Firefly surgeon that Joel shot dead in the first game, beat the protagonist to death with a golf club. It's not just the brutality on display with this one, as being quickly offed with a 9-iron would be bad enough, but it's the fact that Abby draws out the punishment over several hours that makes it so unbearable to witness. Number 8. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider 2013. Considering that she's gotten up to all sorts of shenanigans over the years, it's not surprising that Lara Croft has had the old brush with death or 12, and while she's never canonically died, well, unless you assume she did at the end of The Last Revelation, that doesn't mean she hasn't met a few non-canonical ends at the hands of the player, and perhaps the most brutal of these is in 2013's Tomb Raider reboot. After making her way to a communications relay at the top of a mountain and calling for aid, Lara finds herself descending the peak far quicker than she climbed it, and players must ensure that she avoids various obstacles along the way. Should they fail, poor Lara will slide into an errant spike and give herself one of the most hardcore piercings known to mankind, taking the pointy pole straight through the chin and out the back of her skull. Perhaps most chilling, though, is the fact that she lives long enough to attempt to remove the spike from her own head. I mean, yeah, as deaths go, it's bound to be a fairly quick one, but by golly, that's got to be painful, right? Number 7. Hoyt Volker, Far Cry 3. We hope you're not tired of brain impalement, because we've got another one for you now, only this time the person on the receiving end is probably well deserving of their fate. Although Hoyt Volker isn't the most memorable villain in Far Cry 3, that accolade sits firmly with secondary antagonist Vaz Montenegro, he does meet the grisliest end. After protagonist Jason Brody meets Sam Becker, the two formulate a plan to infiltrate Volker's army and plot to kill him during a poker game. Sadly, Volker is several steps ahead of them and he murders Becker after revealing that he was well aware of the ruse all along. After Volker cuts off Jason's finger, the two engage in a knife fight, but although it initially seems like Volker has the upper hand, no finger-spaced pun intended, it is ultimately Jason who emerges victorious, first stabbing Volker in the chest, then through the neck, and finally in the head. We'd like to say that this couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke, but I think we all know that this would be a far cry from the truth. Christ, that one was truly awful. Number 6. Adam the Clown, Dead Rising. No, this isn't a savage nickname that we all call our boss Adam Pacitti behind his back. Adam the Clown is in fact an utterly unhinged antagonist that players face in 2006 title Dead Rising. When protagonist Frank West arrives at Wonderland Plaza, he finds the Space Rider roller coaster to be malfunctioning. Upon investigating its control panel, he is met by chainsaw-wielding clown Adam McIntyre, who tells him that shutting off the roller coaster will cause the zombies to return before attacking Frank. Naturally, a fight ensues, but it isn't Frank who puts down the crazed children's entertainer for good, but rather Adam himself. When it becomes clear that the fight is lost, rather than waving a little white flag or allowing Frank to dispatch him swiftly, he instead throws himself onto his chainsaw blades, which very, very slowly cut into his stomach, leaving Adam to bleed to death. Not that it seems to bother him too much, mind you, as he spends his last few seconds in this mortal realm cackling maniacally in a large pool of his own blood. The moral of the story here, don't clown around with power tools, kids. Number 5. Helios, God of War 3. If there's one video game character that you probably don't want to cross, it's Kratos, the protagonist of the God of War series, who has, in his 2-decade career, been responsible for the deaths of more deities than most people have had hot dinners. Unfortunately, Helios, the god of the sun and a major antagonist in God of War 3, didn't get this memo, and as such he winds up meeting a rather gruesome end. God of War 3 follows the eponymous deity as he searches for Pandora in order to open Pandora's box, defeat Zeus, end the reign of the Olympian gods, and exact his sweet, sweet revenge. On his journey, he runs into Helios and demands to know the location of the Flame of Olympus. Helios refuses to give it up and attempts to blind Kratos using the power of the sun, but this isn't the first time that the beardy hunk has had to deal with unhelpful gods, and he avoids the attack and in retaliation tears off Helios' head with his bare hands. Oh dear. Getting decapitated would be one thing, but having your head slowly wrenched from your body by one of gaming's hunkiest boys? Unthinkable. Literally, because your head's been ripped off. Number 4. Emily, Until Dawn. As one might expect from a game heavily inspired by teen slasher movies of years past, Until Dawn has plenty of nasty deaths up its proverbial sleeve, and we must give honourable mentions to Matt's meat hook through the jaw demise and Josh's severe Wendigo-induced migraine. In our opinion, though, the worst way to go in the world of Until Dawn is by missing QuickTime events and falling into an industrial wood chipper, or at least we assume that's what it is. We're not exactly lumber experts here at Team Triple Jump. After falling into the mines, Emily finds herself stalked by a Wendigo, a supernatural creature that is the result of a human resorting to cannibalism. The terrifying monstrosity isn't the only danger, however, and when she ends up in a lumber mill, there's plenty of hazardous machinery that poses a threat too, including a big old grinder. Miss one too many QTEs and Emily will lose her footing and fall into the machine, holding onto its edge for dear life. Miss more though, and she won't be able to hold on and will be slowly crushed, feet first, in the grinder's jaws. Ooh, and you thought accidentally shutting your hand in the car door hurt. Number 3. Adam Shepard, Silent Hill Homecoming. The Silent Hill series' Pyramid Head is one of the most fearsome villains in all of gaming and has been responsible for some pretty nasty deaths over the years. But, in our opinion, not one is as brutal as Adam Shepard's demise in Silent Hill Homecoming. The 5th installment in the Silent Hill franchise follows Alex Shepard as he goes looking for his missing brother Josh, eventually discovering that everything that's happened is down to a 150-year-old pact with a cult that forces 4 families to sacrifice a child every 50 years. By the time that Alex catches up to his father, Adam, the elder Shepard, has been tied up and is just starting to explain things, including the fact that Alex hasn't been in the military as he thought, but in a mental hospital, when Pyramid Head shows up and plunges his humongous knife through Adam's torso before slicing him in half from head to crotch. Good God. Whilst we players don't witness the actual bifurcation, we do get a look at the aftermath, and although Adam's death was no doubt relatively quick, looking at the state of the poor guy after Pyramid Head's visit, it certainly wasn't painless. Number 2. Dentist Chair Victim, Manhunt 2. When Manhunt was released in 2003, a number of concerned parents and special interest groups called for it to be banned on account of its violent content, and whilst we're not exactly squeamish here at Team Triple Jump, we can certainly see why the title would upset the more sensitive members of our society. Despite the controversy, however, the title was massively popular and a sequel followed in 2007. Now, in a pair of games where the aim is to murder people in as brutal a way as possible, there was a plethora of options for entries for this list, but in the end, and after upchucking our lunches, we went with the sticky end that was met by the dentist chair victim in Manhunt 2. This poor fellow dies at the hands of protagonist Daniel Lamb and is thrown into a dentist chair for the most violent root canal surgery in history. Once seated, Daniel pins the victim to the chair by driving large spikes through each of his hands before proceeding to drill into his face, first with a hand drill and then with an electric one. It's enough to put you off getting a scale and polish for life. Number 1. The Monsters, Splatterhouse. Now, before we get into this one, it's probably worth pointing out that 2010's Splatterhouse is not a particularly good game, but what it is a very gory game, so if you're just in the market for a title that'll let you dispatch enemies in increasingly stomach-turning ways, then it might just be the game for you. Players take control of Rick Taylor, a man who, after being mortally wounded by the experiments of a doctor of necrobiology, puts on a mask that transforms him into a hulking beast powered by the blood of others, and embarks on a quest to save his girlfriend. Aww. Along the way, he meets more of the Doctor's vicious experimental creatures and is forced to dispatch them, though we're not sure he has to be quite so brutal about it. As the game progresses, players are able to perform splatter kills, which are just like regular kills, only a bajillion times gorier, and whilst they're all pretty horrific, perhaps the worst is the one that sees Rick tearing open the jaw of his victim, plunging his hand down its throat, and tearing out its lungs. Yes, these are bloodthirsty monsters, but we're not sure they deserve that. Right. If you'll excuse me, I need to go throw up. See you next time.